Finished the P80 build this evening. It's a PF940SC P80 frame in FDE and an MDX arms LF26 FDE slide and stainless steel barrel. Overall, very pleased with how things came out. It has pretty decent action. Not too pleased with the recoil spring. As you can probably see here, the recoil spring is just a bolt threaded onto the end of a screw that has a flat end that goes against the barrel lug. There's a pretty tight spring on there. It doesn't give a lot in battery. It really doesn't give anything compared to, say, Shadow Systems MR920, which is basically a fancy Glock 19. When you're slide locked, you have some back to go forward, whereas this doesn't have any. So when you have a full magazine in it and you're cycling rounds through, it sometimes it gets stuck back. Other times it goes fine. I don't know if that's a issue with the recoil spring. If I didn't get enough material out of the channel on the inside here, I'm going to have to take it apart and see if there's any indications of it rubbing. Overall, though, it came out really well. The assembly, the finishing of the frame wasn't too bad. You drill this hole out, you drill this hole out. Be very careful doing so. Don't use a drill press, use a hand drill. Drill presses can walk out of the jig. Hand drills, you just gotta be careful. They say to drill through both sides. I didn't do that, and I think that's where I'm actually messed up. I actually had to walk these holes out just a little bit with a Dremel, front and back. And I also accidentally oblonged this one on the back strap out for the rear block. I did polish the front and rear blocks when I was putting mine together, which I think made a humongous difference in how how it actually feels. Kind of slide nice and buttery. Again, just not enough room for it to fully cycle. Kind of scared to test fire it, that said. So I'm going to look for a standard G26 recoil spring. But I'm pretty happy with the matching of the finish. The P80 polymer FDE looks pretty close to the MDX arms FDE. This is just a little bit more muddy and muted, whereas this is a little bit brighter. I'd like to do a set of Talon grips in black here to kind of take away some of the FDE here to make the trick the eye into making this look like it matches a little bit more. The only other thing I can see that I'm not so sure about is there's a bit of a gap between the slide and the frame, if you can see it there. I think that's normal on Glocks. My 27 had that just a little bit, and this Shadow Systems MR920 kind of has it in the front, but not a ton. You can see the recoil spring in there. Back here you can kind of see the trigger mechanism just a little bit, but I mean this one is a pretty big gap. I don't know if that's normal with P80s or if I need to take a little bit of material off something. Again, I polished things up and I tried to keep the slide, or the frame rather, and the frame rails pretty well milled down when I was finishing the frame out. Overall, the only other thing that I'm not the biggest fan of is this humongous mag release. I mean, absolutely enormous mag release compared to, say here. Now again, we're comparing a Shadow Systems MR920 to a home-built P80 Glock, but that mag release is just absolutely enormous. It doesn't seem to get in the way of holding it too much. Also, another thing that I'm not a fan of are the, let's see if I can line this up. The MDX. Wow, I'm not very spatially oriented today. The sights on this slide are absolutely horrendous. It's not focusing very well. But there's basically nothing here. I mean, the sights are just terrible. So luckily it's got an RMR cut. I had a nice RMR plate I got on eBay with the old American flag on it. Again, I mean, obviously we're comparing apples to oranges here, but the sights on the 920 are just amazing compared to this. But again, this is just a fun gun, a beat gun to kind of beat up and have fun with. If I can get the issue with the having barely any room to go back here, then I think this would be a pretty fun gun. I'm pretty pleased with how it came out. I actually like the way the frame feels. I've seen a lot of people complain about how these frames feel in their hand. I actually like it quite a bit. It reminds me very much of the MR920. Very flat, it kind of no finger grooves, which I'm a big fan of. Nobody likes the finger grooves. I'm pretty pleased with this overall. Not a bad little pistol.